Good morning, y'all. I want to talk about what keeps me awake at night. I always wake up, it's still dark outside, but it's technically morning. I do this all the time. Rarely do I sleep until a decent time, like 6:30, 7 in the morning. I always wake up around 3 something or 4 something in the morning. So I actually wanted to make this video like an hour and a half ago, but we have adult children that still live at home. And every time I think about, oh, this is a good time to make a video, I want it to be spur of the moment. Actually, I made 4 videos recently and I uploaded them, and I wasn't going to make videos for a while, but I woke up and I was thinking about what I normally think about when I wake up this time of morning. And I said, I'm going to do a video. But we have adult children in the house and they're always moving around. So one of them, when I was thinking about making the video, she got up and started getting dressed for work. And then the other one, I didn't even know that she wasn't home, but I saw her on the Ring camera coming home like around like just before 5 o'clock in the morning. I didn't even know that she wasn't at home. So it's like somebody always around. And then my husband retired like about 3 years ago. And you know how they say, don't just think about what you're retiring from, think about what you're retiring into. Well, he didn't think about that. So he's been retired for 3 years. And so he never goes anywhere. He's always home, either watching TV or playing on his phone. So it's hard to get any privacy at home to make a video. But anyway, it doesn't sound like anybody is moving around right now. So I'm going to tell you all what it is that keeps me up at night. Every time when I wake up, I think about my son who has schizophrenia. So he has schizophrenia and he's been on probation for the past 5 years, and he has 1 year left of probation. And so every time I wake up at some odd hour of the day, he is the first thing that crosses my mind, because I always think about what's going to happen with him when he's no longer on medication. Right now, he's taking an injectable antipsychotic, and he is given that once every month. He doesn't live with us anymore. So I'm going to tell you what happened to me. What happened to me is the same thing that happened from, it's my understanding. I don't know all the details, of course, but my understanding of what happened to the Reiners, Rob Reiner and his wife, except I obviously survived. So this was during the early days of COVID, and I was working from home. And the odd thing about it is that I'm going to try not to be too graphic, but the odd thing about it, it's like you could see an episode coming on. It wasn't all of a sudden, right? So that weekend, I had taken and I hid all of the knives. And there was a pair of shears in the kitchen drawer. And I looked at those shears and I said to myself, maybe I should hide those too. And I decided, no, I'll just leave them where they are. And that was a decision that almost cost me my life. So anyway, I'm with my laptop at the kitchen table, and my son, who's diagnosed with schizophrenia, came up behind me and started attacking me. So my husband was at work, and I have 2 daughters that live at home. This happened 5 years ago. So at the time, one of them was still in high school and the other one was going to community college. So when he was attacking me, I was fighting for my life and I was screaming. And so one of my daughters, she didn't come downstairs at all, and the other one ran downstairs. The daughter who stayed upstairs, I can't say that I blame her, because this wasn't our first rodeo with this type of stuff. And she had been injured on an event on one of these events, and so she probably just figured I'm gonna hide in my room. The other daughter came downstairs to see what the commotion was about, and that's probably what saved my life, because when my son saw her, he took off after her. She ran to a neighbor's house right next to us, and initially I don't think that person came to the door, so then she ran further down to another neighbor's house. So I get up off the floor and I run out the door and I'm saying, leave her alone, leave her alone. And all of this is being captured on our Ring camera. So the neighbor to our immediate left did come out of her house, and I can see her on the camera saying my son's name and saying, leave her alone, leave her alone. And so my son had stopped chasing after my daughter. Our dog, who was she passed away last year, but she is a beagle pit mix, but her personality is definitely more on the beagle side. So you can see her on the Ring barking, but not a vicious bark at my son, more an excited jumping around like what the heck is going on type of reaction from our dog. And so you see him on the camera with his fist balled up swinging at me, and I took off running to another neighbors that live further down. So at this point, I think multiple people had called the police. And when the police get there, I'm like sitting on the ground, but I can still view our house. And you can imagine what I look like. Later on, I counted, I had 13 wounds, including defensive wounds. I ended up with bruised ribs, and I still have that picture to this day that they took when I was in the hospital, because I did end up going to a plastic surgeon, and I think he took pictures, and I don't really even, I'm sorry, I don't really even know what the plastic surgeon was for. I don't know, just an opportunity for them to make money, but I didn't have plastic surgery. But I ended up with, marks under both eyes. You couldn't even see the white part of my eyes. They were just like bloodshot, I guess, from being hit in that area. But anyway, I'm sitting on the ground, and some random guy, an older white guy who may have been jogging through our neighborhood, took out his phone. He wasn't trying to help. I guess he just wanted to take pictures and share them with his friends. And a neighbor that I did know told him to get the what away from me. And so there was that. And then I could see the police when they arrived in force, and they had their long, I don't know what they're called, but I'm going to refer to them as rifles. And they were, descending upon our house. So at this point, my one daughter that hid in her room, she was still in the house. And so I'm looking at all these police officers descending on our house with their weapons drawn. And I'm thinking to myself, if something goes down and my son ends up being unalived, at least this is going to be over, because I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this, because at this point, he was in his early 20s, and this had been going on since he was a teenager. And I just thought, at least if it goes down, this is going to be over for us, and I'm ready for this to be over. So at any rate, he ended up being arrested, and he spent some time in jail. And I guess I maintained, this anger and frustration, and just didn't want anything to do with him. I would say probably for about a week or so. So for about a week or so, when I got to the hospital, the people at the hospital, they just don't, they really need better training, because they these people, while they were providing attention, and it wasn't like the doctors and the nurses so much, it was like the emergency room people. And I guess they behave the way they behave because they see stuff like this all the time. So for them, the situation is the same as like making a pizza or just shelving something at Walmart. It's nothing to them. And so while they are giving me emergency treatment before I actually got checked into a room, these people are pretty much laughing and talking about what they're going to do for the weekend. And so I'm like, I get that you are used to seeing this type of stuff. And so you detach yourself, but at least have the decency to not be talking about what you're going to have for lunch or what you're going to do for the weekend when you are providing medical attention to someone. So my heart began to soften, after a week or so. And I thinking to myself, like, people who have mental illnesses, they don't ask to have a mental illness, just like people don't ask to have cancer. And so at that point, my heart began to soften, and I started trying to figure out ways to help my son. And it's really hard to get help for people. I belong to I participate with this organization called NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. And if you're in a similar situation and you don't know about them, please do your research and find a NAMI, a local NAMI that you can work with. But I have met a lot of wonderful people through NAMI, and I was able to get advice from these people on what to do to help my son. And I just want to say this. I want to talk about this in depth on another video. But if you're trying to get your loved one, like maybe sent to like a hospital, to get them hospitalized, you have to go through the magistrate's office. And the magistrate's office, it's like a joke. It's like they're playing a game. It's like you're playing Monopoly and you never played it before. And the person that you're playing with, they have the rules. They got to read the instructions, but you're playing with them. But you're told you don't get to see the instructions. You got to figure this out without the instructions. That's what it's like going to the magistrate's office. Like, they're playing a game and you have to figure out what the rules are on your own. And so one of my other sons, he was such a blessing during this time. Because truth be told, one, my husband was working like a night shift, and he was just wasn't much help at all. But my other son, he was really helpful because my son, with the diagnosis, he stayed in jail, then he finally went to court. And he was pretty much told that we're going to give you probation, but you're going to have to follow the rules of the probation, which is to get medical help. And so they're talking to a person that has a serious mental illness. So it's not like you're telling a person with cancer, you're going to have to get chemotherapy, you're going to have to get radiation. You're talking to a person that has been in jail and they're not medicated. And they're pretty much going to, what if I had decided I don't want anything to do with him? I'm done. And I wasn't there to help him. Then how would he have gotten any help if me and my other son weren't there to help him? So the day that my son was released from jail, my other son had to take my son, who's in a psychotic state, to a facility to get help from him, and then get help for him. And then from there, he checked my son into a hotel. Then from there, my son went to that was helping me, went to the magistrate's office and tried to say, we need to get him at least committed temporarily, long enough to get him on medication or whatever. But basically, what they tell you is that they ask you, is he a threat to himself? And he was like, yeah, this is what he did. This is what he did to my mother. And they will say, the magistrate will say, did it happen within the last 48 hours? Well, no, it didn't happen within the last 48 hours. It happened 2 weeks ago. He's been in jail. Well, if it didn't happen within the last 48 hours, if it happened 49 hours ago or 3 days ago, then he's not a threat to himself and you can't get him committed. And so this is what I learned on one of those occasions when I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about my son, like I always do, because he's what I think of when I wake up at night. I wake up at night, and even before I formulate a thought, I just get this feeling of dread, and I feel depressed, and then I start thinking about what is going to become of my son. So on this occasion, when I woke up in the middle of the night thinking, how can I help my son? Because these people at the magistrate's office, they're playing a game and I don't know what the rules are. So what I did was I turned on the TV, I turned on Prime, and I put schizophrenia and things related to mental illness in the search engine. And I started watching some documentaries. And from these documentaries, I learned like what you need to say. Like from watching these documentaries, I learned the rules, how to play this game, what words I should use, what I needed to say. And then I made up my mind. I got my game plan together. I got my act together. And around 7 o'clock that morning, I went back to the magistrate's office. This was like the fourth time, I want to say, because I had went up there twice and my son had been up there once. But I went up there this time knowing the rules of the game, and I put my game face on and I went up there and I said the words that they needed to hear. And honestly, I think the magistrate seemed disappointed. He reluctantly agreed. Once I said what he needed to hear to have my son committed, at least temporarily, he seemed disappointed. But he ended up saying, well, okay, we'll send, where is he at? We'll send critically incident trained officers to get him first thing in the morning, like business hours or whatever. And which is what happened. I met them at this hotel where my son was staying. My other son met us up there too. My other son helped coax my son with the illness out of the room, and they got him to a facility. He was committed at least long enough to get help. I had to attend a hearing. And during this hearing, it may have been like a day or two later, but and I'm going to tell you this, even my son's court-appointed attorney was like, how did you do that? How did you get the magistrate to agree to have him committed? I was having to teach. I didn't want to say too much, but I was having to teach the court-appointed attorney, so maybe he could use it to help other people in the future. I don't know, but I was having to teach him the rules to this game. But anyway, when I went back a few days later to the hearing to have my son actually committed, and in which my son, because it was during COVID, and my son, he wasn't in person, he was on a TV screen. And then there were people in the room with me. And then again, just like in the emergency room, as we were waiting for my son to get in front of the screen, these people in the room, they were just talking about their families and my kids and what their kids were doing during COVID and just laughing. And here I am, this incident had happened like a few weeks before. And so I'm not only physically wounded, but I'm mentally fragile. I'm in a mentally fragile state. And these people are just so insensitive that they are carrying on, just talking about their lives and what they're going to do this weekend, and how their kids are keeping busy during COVID and this, that, and the other. But anyway, during this hearing, um, my son appeared in front of the screen and he looked surprisingly calm. He looked good, and he agreed to take the injectable. And so they actually held him at the hospital for a few more days, I guess, to give the medication time to take effect. And in the meantime, I hit the pavement because he wasn't coming back to live with us again. That just was not going to happen, because I love my son to death, but the rest of us have to be safe. And so I hit the pavement trying to find an apartment for him to live in that we could afford. And so the first place I went to, it was just off the highway. It was like a highly trafficked area with a lot of traffic. And there was a 7-Eleven across the street. And my son chain smokes. He chain smokes. So I don't know if you guys know this, but there's something in the nicotine that helps calm people with certain mental illnesses. And so he chain smokes. So I knew he would be going, back and forth across the street, trying to get to the 7-Eleven. And one, I was afraid that he would get hit by a car because there was a lot of traffic in this area. But also, there was a bridge that was over a lake in walking distance from this apartment complex. And I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to have a person with a mental health issue near traffic and near a bridge and near water. And so the second place that I went to was actually perfect. It was funny because I was familiar with this complex. It was in the city next to ours, and I was familiar with it, but they had changed names. And it was actually the complex where my husband was living when I met him, and I lived down the street in another complex. And so this ended up being the perfect location because it's off a bus line, and there's like a grocery store across the street. There's like a plaza with a grocery store. There's a coffee shop. There's a pharmacy there. There was a gym there. It went out of business. Several fast food restaurants there. So my son doesn't drive, and then that's where he is right now. So this is what I think about when I wake up in the morning. What I think about at night, what keeps me awake at night, is my son's been on probation 5 years, and it ends in August. And what is going to become of him when his probation ends? I have met people through NAMI, and some of those people I still keep in contact with them. And at least 3 women that I keep in contact with from NAMI, these women are retired. And in their retirement, they are dealing with their adult sons. 2 of them, their sons have schizophrenia. 1 of them has schizoaffective disorder, which is, from my understanding, what Nick Reiner was diagnosed with. And in their retirement, they can't even enjoy their retirement because they are dealing with their adult children who have a mental illness. And I just retired last year in December 2025, and in August of 2026, my son will no longer be on probation. And this is what keeps me up at night. I'll see you guys on the next video.